There are hedge fund managers making $1 million an hour. You know, it's crazy, right? It's money everywhere. It's money in everything. I want to help you. Start your business today. Come join my royal family. Subscribe to Casino is the Name. Hey yo, what's going on right now? You're watching Casino is the Name, and in this video, I wanted to talk to you guys about whether or not you should rent or if you should buy. And for whatever reason in real estate, this question always seems to come up. And of course, in certain situations, you know, it's going to be better to do one than the other. But in almost every situation that I can think of, you should buy instead of rent. I want to get right into it. I want to go ahead and answer the question, should you buy or should you rent? You more than likely should buy. All right. There's a few times where it may make sense to rent, and I guess we can speak about some of those situations. But one way that it may make more sense for you to rent than to buy is if the cost to buy is so astronomical over the price of renting, then yes, it would make more sense to rent than to buy. Okay. And let's say, for instance, let's say New York City, right? And maybe an apartment, I'm just using New York, okay? I don't really know what the New York market is or anything like that. But there are some markets where the cost or the barrier to purchase is maybe, let's say, a cheap place is $1 million, right? $1 million, that's a lot of money, okay? Where your mortgage will be several thousands of dollars. Like, let's say your mortgage is going to be $6,000 on a place that your rent would be $2,000 of the equal size and space. Okay, in that situation, yeah, because maybe you got to pay $6,000 in mortgage and you got to put down a down payment of several, $100,000 or whatever, maybe $200,000 down, and your mortgage is still $6,000 versus you can still rent that place for $2,000 to $3,000, maybe $2,000, $2,500. There are places like that could possibly exist. In those situations, in those odd situations, which is not most of America, then yes, it would absolutely probably make more sense to rent than to buy. Now, other situations, I was in the military. I was in a location that I was not planning on ever staying or being past a certain amount of time. I wasn't planning on being there past 2 years, and I used to follow the 2-year rule. If I was going to be anywhere longer than 2 years, I was going to try to buy. So I knew I wasn't going to try to be there longer than 2 years. Didn't really want to ever come back to that area. Sorry, Kansas. I didn't want to come back, okay? And the cost to be in a townhouse was relatively cheap. And actually, the cost to buy houses in that area was actually pretty high, as a matter of fact, now that I think about it. Now, of course, one of the things you have to take into account when, say, looking at the price of an apartment versus the price of a house is, let's say you find an apartment and the apartment is $1,500 a month, right? And you find a house and you're like, well, the apartment is $1,500 a month and maybe the mortgage is $1,600 a month, right? And so you're like, well, the apartment is less. Yes, but you got to think about the size of the apartment versus the size of the house, right? Okay, for instance, now this house that I'm in currently is 3,169 square feet. So 3,100 square feet, and my mortgage is $1,300 and let's say $1,400. It's a little shy of $1,400 a month, right? But let's just say $1,400 a month with taxes, insurance, principal, and interest. All right, so that's PITI, P-I-T-I, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So with all of that, my mortgage is right around $1,400, just shy of $1,400. So $1,400 a month, 3,000 square feet. Now, if I were to find an apartment, where am I going to find a 3,000 square foot apartment for equal measure, right? It's almost, you're not really going to find that. And you're definitely not going to find that for $1,400 a month. So even if you find an apartment that's $1,200 or $1,300 or $1,400 or $1,500 a month, you're not going to get this much space. Now, maybe space isn't that important to you, but you get the I guess the idea is that even if you're comparing an apartment to a house, and maybe the mortgage is higher, you're more than likely going to get more per square foot than you would from an apartment. Now, if you got a 1,200 square foot house and a 1,200 square foot apartment, then more than likely that house that you may be paying $1,200, you may be paying for that apartment maybe $1,300, $1,400 a month. That house needs to be, if it's 1,200 square feet, that house needs to be probably in the hundreds, like $700, $800 a month, you know what I'm saying, something like that. It's still going to be, you should still get more based off of the location, because of course, if you're in California or New York or somewhere expensive, then yeah, it probably would be more per square foot. But in most situations, in most of America, the price of the mortgage, my other house is, I think it's 1,900 square feet, something like that, 1,900 square feet or so. But let's say if it's 1,200 square feet, that mortgage on that house is $550. Let's say it's $600 a month, which is not, but let's say it's $600 a month. That house is still way less than what an apartment would be at that same size, right? At 1,200 square feet, there's no $600 apartments in that in any of these areas that I be in. So now, if maybe you're in a certain area and you got 600 square foot apartment, you got $600 apartments that's 1,200 square feet. Cool, that's great. They still not gonna have a yard like that. They still won't have, you still won't grow in interest, like in value, right? So that's the other side of it, right? Because if I'm paying, let's say I'm paying $1,200 a month, right? $1,200 a month, and I decide I don't want to move ever. Like I don't want to buy a house ever, right? So, and I say, okay, well, I moved out when I was 19 years old. So, matter of fact, let's do that. 19 years old, that's where I left. And say I'm gonna retire at 65, okay? So 65 minus 19 years old, that's 46 years. So 46 years to be a working adult, right? Times 1,200 times 12 months. So $1,200 a month on average for 12 months a year for 46 years. That is $662,400. Now, that $662,400, that's how much I would have paid in rent. Now, upon my retirement, how much of that $662,400 can I take into retirement? How much do you think? How much do you think that I can say, okay, now I want to move to an island, or now I want to buy or join a elderly community or something. I want to move, and now I want to take part of this money with me to my next move. How much of this money can I take? How much? None of it. That's right. Not a single dollar goes with me because I rented the whole time. Now, let's say I got a mortgage, and I got a mortgage at $1,200. And you know what? I should have done it at $1,400 because this is what my current mortgage is. Now, let's say I got a mortgage at $1,200. Excuse me. And even with, so taxes are going to go up, which also cause the mortgage to elevate. But let's say on average, I stayed in that house, maybe that first house that I got, right? That I'm saying that the mortgage is now $550 on. That's less than $600 a month, but let's say I'm in that house and I stayed in that house for 30 years. Now, when I bought that house, it was $54,300. The house now is worth $153,000 or something. So it's now worth over $100,000 more. It's not worth quite $100,000 more what I originally paid for it, but it's around that. But I owe like 30-something thousand on it. But let's say that house is going to be worth. That house is maybe worth. Well, let's say I bought something that I would have had that would have been equivalent to this $1,200. Let's say that house ends up being in 46 years. I bought it at $100 and something thousand. I'm paying $1,200 a month, and when I retire, that house is going to be worth $400,000 in 46 years. So not only would I would have had that house paid off in 30 years and had 16 years that I would not have had a mortgage. So that $1,200 a month times $1,200 a month times 12 times for 12 months times 16 years, that's $230,000 automatically that I would have saved since I didn't have a mortgage for that period of time. But then the house itself, let's say the house itself that I bought for $100 and something thousand is now worth $380. So the house is paid off plus it's worth $380,000. So I could turn around and sell it. So now that house that I was paying $1,200 a month on, same as if I was renting, is now $610,000 to the positive. Now, the other side, I don't remember what all the details were, but it was over 600 and something thousand. So now, not only are we up 610,000, but we now can either decide we're going to stay, rent it out, because we can still rent it out, right? Because we have a valuation of 380,000, and then we also saved a certain portion, 200 and some thousand, 230,000 or so from not renting. I mean, from not having to pay mortgage. But now we also have the benefit of saying, okay, out of this 380,000, maybe I just want to take 80,000 out, and I want to go to whatever community that I want to go stay in. So I take that 80,000. And maybe now I want to go rent or something like that. Or maybe now I want to go to a elderly community and do that kind of thing. But I can go do that, borrow, refinance 80,000 out of my asset that I have of $380,000 worth, and rent it out. Sure. And then rent the house out. So I got a $380,000 asset. I haven't paid mortgage. I got $230,000 saved from not having to pay a mortgage, or 200 something thousand saved. Let's say 200,000 saved from not having to pay a mortgage. I have an asset that's worth $380,000. I can take $80,000 out of it as a refinance. I still owe, it's still $300,000 in the positive. So. And then I can put a tenant in there, and that tenant may be paying me because of its future costs that, like the rents are in the future. So that future rent might be, I don't know, maybe $3,000 by the time, maybe $2,800 or something like that by the time. Because even this house right now, rent is about $2,500, $2,600 if somebody were to rent it. And so in the future, in 40 years from now, like 30 years from now, this house may be renting for $5,000-$6,000 a month. I don't know. But that house could be renting for $3,000 or so a month, or let's just say $2,500 a month. But it's paying back the $80,000 that you took the money out of already. So not only are you up $280,000, $80,000 plus the $200,000 that you saved not paying mortgage, but now that house is actually paying that money back and maybe even cash flowing you $1,000 a month or something like that for you to continue your lifestyle or whatever. So it's definitely way more beneficial in the long run to buy than to rent. I have no idea what people are saying, what they're talking about. Anyway, right now you're watching Casino Is the Name. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and we out. There are hedge fund managers making $1 million an hour. No, it's crazy, right? It's money everywhere. It's money in everything. I want to help you. Start your business today. Come join my royal family. Subscribe to Casino is the name.